Today I want to talk to you guys about walk-in coolers, what you need to know, and why you need to have one if you're going to run a commercial farm. That's coming up next on The Urban Farmer. A lot of people ask me, is it possible to start a farm without a cooler? And the answer is yes. But do you want to suffer? That's the question. If you want to suffer and burn out, go ahead, start a farm without a cooler. No problem. You'll have a lot of fun. If you don't want to burn out and you don't want to suffer, then you need to have proper cold storage, okay? The main reason for this is that it creates a balance in your workflow. If you don't have a walk-in cooler, so let's say you have no cold storage whatsoever, this means that whenever you harvest product, you're going to be selling it either that day or the next day. And that means that you're going to have to do all of that work in one day. Okay? So that means that if the weather is absolute shit, if product isn't quite ready, whatever, or product is too mature, where you could have maybe harvested it on Wednesday and it would have been better, you're going to deal with all kinds of different circumstances that are going to be less than ideal when you're not using a walk-in cooler. And the main thing is that it means you have to harvest all in one day, and during the middle of the summer, that is going to burn you out like crazy because you're going to have a lot of product coming off the field and you're going to be harvesting everything in one day, meaning you're going to be putting in 16, sometimes 20-hour days to get it to market. And I can say that with confidence because I've seen it happen many times before. I have seen the farmers at the market who don't have cold storage, and there's a lot of them. I don't understand why. They have a barn or something and they harvest everything the day before. They cool it, they hydro-cool it in water, they keep it in the barn, and they bring it to market. By the middle of summer, these farmers look absolutely shell-shocked. They look like they have been to the war and back, okay? Their eyes are beet red, they're tired, they don't have a lot of energy. You don't want to do this. Save yourself the trouble, okay? The reason you want to have a cooler is to avoid all that pain and suffering. But it allows you, it gives you optionality. A cooler allows you to harvest on multiple days of the week, which means you can balance out your workflow. Meaning if the weather's going to be shitty on Friday or Thursday or whenever your main harvesting days are, harvest on a day that the weather's good, on Wednesday or Tuesday or Monday. It gives you optionality, and this is really important to creating a nice balanced workflow and better lifestyle, frankly. And ultimately it keeps your product intact, and it allows you to market your product for a longer period. When you harvest something like salad greens that perish relatively quickly, if you can get them into the cold storage right away, you can buy yourself another week of shelf life for that product, meaning that you can market it for another week, meaning that if you can't sell it all in one day, you've got a few more days to sell it. So this makes you more money ultimately in the end. That's why I tell people, don't cheap out. Get a cooler, spend the money. And there's some cheap ways to get a cooler that I'll talk to you about. Okay, so what we're looking at here, I've had these coolers for 6 years. And this is their 7th year actually. And well, actually my first year I bought this cooler, my second year I bought this one. And they both look the same, but they're slightly different. As far as their frames, what they are, they're called restaurant style walk-in coolers. And what they have are what are called modulock panels. I'll just go inside this one, which is off right now. And all of these panels come apart. So there's a little Allen key goes in here, and there's a little hook that hooks up. And so you can just take this Allen key and untwist all these, and each panel just comes apart really easily. And they're light. They're made of styrofoam, and they have a, I think it's a steel or aluminum siding on them. So they can be taken apart and moved relatively easily. In fact, I've moved both of these on my bike trailers in previous years. Okay, so this cooler is a traditional restaurant style walk-in cooler. You can find these relatively cheap, especially if you know where to look. The best place to look for these are restaurant supply stores. Restaurants are always going into business. They're the number one failing, it's like 85% failure rate. So restaurants are always going into business. Their supplies are constantly being sold or liquidated. So you can often find coolers like this for relatively cheap. And what's on top is the compressor. So that is the unit that makes the air cool. It uses Freon gas, and I can't explain much other than that. But it's the cooling unit, and it's probably the most expensive part of the unit itself. So if this cooler new were to sell for, say, $6,000, the compressor is probably worth at least half of that. Okay, so the compressor is something that, if it fails on you, to replace it is expensive. But there is a way to replace a compressor where you don't actually need to use a compressor. This is where a little machine called the CoolBot comes in, and I'm going to show that to you now. So this happened to this cooler last 2 years ago. The compressor tanked on me, and I took it to a heating and cooling guy to get a quote on what it would cost to fix, and it was around $1,000. So what I did was I took an air conditioner. This is a Danby air conditioner. It's pretty generic. I think it's an 8,000 BTU air conditioner. And I went online and I ordered a little piece of equipment called a CoolBot, this guy. All it is a little piece of electronics that you wire up to the air conditioner, and it tricks the air conditioner to think that it's warmer than it is, and so it drops its temperature. So effectively, you can have an air conditioner running like a compressor, working in the same way. So we keep our coolers at 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, and that's the standard coolage temperature for vegetables, and it works just fine with the CoolBot. So the beauty of it is that instead of having to pay $1,000 to fix a compressor, I ordered the CoolBot, which is about $200 or $300 US. I'll put a link below. Went to the hardware store and got a generic air conditioner for $200, and I took some styrofoam and some duct tape and put this all together and have effectively a compressor. And it actually pulls a lot less energy than a compressor too. So that was a really cheap way to set up a walk-in cooler. So another way you can actually build a walk-in cooler relatively easy. Just frame up 2x4s, half-inch plywood, and then just go and get some R40 of blue insulation, like that stuff up there, or the pink stuff is good too. And you can frame a room, put an air conditioner with a CoolBot in it, and you've got a cooler. You can get a trailer. You can buy an old trailer. I've shown this before when I interviewed Matt Coffey in Asheville, North Carolina. I'll put an image for it here. And they basically just took this trailer, spray foamed the bottom, put some insulating panels on the inside, put a CoolBot and an air conditioner, cut a hole through it, you're good to go. That's a really great option if you're not going to be in the same place for a while and you're going to be moving around. That's going to save you a lot of, taking this down and packing it back up, which I've done multiple times, which it has been a bit of a hassle. Now I've got more of a permanent location, so now I don't have to move my coolers as much. But so those are some options for you there. So keep in mind that if you're going to start farming commercially, okay, so you're going to sell product at market and you're going to sell to restaurants, you're going to run a CSA, you need to have a walk-in cooler. Some people ask, hey Curtis, is it possible to get some refrigerators, some old home refrigerators, and just stack them in a line and use that? Well, yes, it's possible, but it's another way of suffering, basically. Because the problem with those refrigerators is they don't fit bins in them. Walk-in coolers are great because I can take an entire tote of product and throw it in the cooler. So, whereas that doesn't work with refrigerators, and refrigerators don't pull the heat off the product as quick as something like this does, where you've got a larger volume of air. So when you've got refrigerators, that means that you have to harvest product, portion it, and process it before it can fit in those coolers. That's a huge hassle that interrupts your workflow. Whereas when you have a cooler, you can harvest product from the field and throw the totes inside and deal with it later. That is going to save you a ton of wasted time. So please, if you're going to start a commercial farm, don't cheap out. Get the cooler, spend the $1,000. You can find these for $1,000 used, and they go for about $10,000 new. You can find them used, and like I showed you with the CoolBot, you can get a cooler that doesn't have a functioning compressor and go to a hardware store, get an air conditioner, go online, order the CoolBot, and you're in business. Okay guys, I hope you found that useful. I'd like to hear some stories from you. If any of you have horror stories about not having refrigerators or walk-in coolers, please leave them below. Subscribe to the channel and like and share these with your friends. Alright, thanks for watching.